Welcome back to the program. Doug Miles. I'm sitting in for Rochelle Herm tonight. I'm also at 1220 WIBQ. Glad to be with you tonight. Our guest is Ken Nichols, and we've just been talking about his remarkable story of surviving cancer. When we left, Ken, you were talking about some of the contributing factors you felt may have caused this in your life, and diet and stress, lack of sleep was another one. Let's, Tom, talk about the first step of the treatment that you took. When the doctor came in and told you this diagnosis, what was the first thing that you did?
Sure. Well, the first thing that they did is they did offer me surgery and radiation and chemotherapy. We had a number of days before the surgery to really talk about it, and my wife and I had done some research over those couple of days and decided we weren't going to do the radiation and the chemo, and we were going to look into some other alternatives. I did have the initial surgery. In hindsight now, I wish I hadn't done it, but we did go back to Florida, and I walked away from my career, and I made it my full-time job to figure out how I could beat this. And I spent anywhere between 8 and 12 hours every single day, either online or reading books or making phone calls and talking to people and trying to investigate what other options there were. Because I had lived through 2 close family members going through cancer and going through radiation and chemo and drug therapy, and it was miserable and it was painful, and they both ended up dying ultimately in a short period of time, and that didn't look all that attractive to me at 39 years old with a wife. And at that point, we started to research, and I started to find that there were people across the world, not only across the country here, but across the world, that were doing either holistic treatments or alternative treatments or integrative type treatments for cancer, and were surviving and thriving and becoming cancer free. And I realized that by doing chemotherapy or radiation or a drug therapy like that, I really wasn't going to make myself cancer free. And I liken it to having a dandelion in your front lawn. One day if you wake up and you see a yellow dandelion in your lawn, if you go out there with a pair of scissors and cut the yellow head off, you don't look at it and say, I don't have dandelions anymore. The dandelion is still there. You just cut off the result. And I started to kind of make the correlation in my own mind that if I went and had radiation and chemo and just zapped the result, which was the cancer that showed up in my body, if I just zapped that, I really wasn't cancer free, because whatever created that environment in my body that the cancer was able to thrive was just going to come back, just like a dandelion would. If you snip the head off,
the roots are still there. The
roots are still there. The whole system is still there, and eventually that root system and the seeds are going to spread over the whole lawn. So you're not going to have just one. You're going to have several dandelions, and that's what I did. Is I started to make a list of things that I knew that I had to have and knew that I needed to do to be able to beat cancer, and I put them in order, and I started to look for people who could help me. I knew I needed a detox. I knew I needed to supercharge my immune system. Among other things, I also knew that I needed to find someone or a clinic somewhere that knew how to put all these different aspects together in a way that actually worked. And when I first got diagnosed, I started a macrobiotic diet. So I got all the garbage out of my diet, and I ate in a way that helped to build up my immune system and to really give myself a fighting chance to beat the cancer.
Just before you go on, explain macrobiotic. We've heard that term, but I'm not sure everybody understands exactly what that means.
Basically, a macrobiotic diet is a diet that consists of mostly green leafy vegetables, a lot of root vegetables, such as carrots and turnips and things like that, potatoes, fruits, nuts and seeds, grains, things like that. Basically, everything that God made is what you're eating, and things that man made you're really not eating.
Right.
We actually
is meat included in that? Any kind of meat? Like low fat, high protein kind of meat?
In some there are. I eliminated meat, chicken, red meat, pork, and fish from my diet altogether. After I got better and all my cancerous tumors were dead, and I was just finishing up on my treatments, I did start to eat some fish, and I still do today. And about every month or two, I put in a little bit of free-range organic chicken. But for the most part, for several months, probably almost a year, I think, we ate no meat, no animal protein whatsoever.
Did you have surgery right away, or did you do this diet first and then had surgery later?
I did have the surgery right away, about 4 or 5 days after my initial diagnosis.
Away they had you go on.
I did. In hindsight, I would not have done it.
What kind of surgery, if you don't mind my asking?
I had one of my testicles removed. They investigated and that's when they found, in my lymph nodes, that's when they found the cancer in the lymph nodes. But my wife and I had done enough research just in those couple of days to realize that we needed to keep those lymph nodes, and they wanted to remove them. And I guess it's quite common when they're in the lymph nodes to remove those. But in the little bit of research that I had done right up until then, we realized that we needed the lymph nodes to be able to fight off the cancer, to get it out of me. And we opted against that, and it was to the chagrin of our doctors and surgeons, certainly. But in hindsight, I'm glad that I left them.
Yeah, the lymph system basically is the filter for the body, isn't it? Or where the body sends
all the garbage.
Right, gets it out.
It gets it out, right. Yeah. So I knew I needed that, and if I was going to go this route of a holistic, non-traditional approach, I was going to
save as much as you can of that system.
I was going to save as much as I could because I was going to need it in the fight, and I did.
Ken Nichols is our guest on It's All About Health tonight. When we come back, we'll talk about Ken's books that are coming out that can help you if you're going through this or know somebody that is. Hope you stay with us right here. We'll be back after these messages.